Leon S. Kennedy steps into the blinding sunlight of the Harran slums. He checks his magazine. 13 rounds. Within seconds, the shambling groans of the infected surround him. Unlike Kyle Crane, who scrambles up the nearest telephone pole, Leon plants his feet. 2 shots, 2 drops. Here, he has an open city drowning in biological threats. We're about to run a physiological simulation. Can a man who suplexes cultists survive a city that demands you run? He has 72 hours to secure the GRE files before the ministry levels the city. The clock starts now. Section 1. Harran, the Slums and Old Town. Welcome to the slums. The first hurdle Leon faces isn't a zombie, it's gravity. The architecture of Harran is designed for vertical traversal, parkour. Kyle Crane survives because he's a tracer. He converts forward momentum into vertical lift. Leon, however, is built like a tank. In Resident Evil 6, his movement is heavy, tactical, and grounded. If we analyze the biomechanics, Leon's tank controls style of movement is a massive liability here. He can't wall run, and his climbing speed is significantly slower than Crane's agile scrambling. In the slums, staying on the ground usually means death. But here's the variable that changes the equation: upper body strength. Leon doesn't need to flow over obstacles. He vaults them. While he won't be setting any time trial records on the rooftops, his anaerobic capacity allows him to sprint indefinitely in tactical bursts. He isn't avoiding the horde. He's routing it. Then the sun goes down. This is the true test. The volatiles emerge. In Dying Light, a volatile pounce is a game over scenario for most survivors. We estimate a volatile hits with about 3,000 newtons of force, enough to shatter ribs and rupture organs instantly. Kyle Crane survives by using UV traps and running for his life. In Resident Evil 4, Leon is thrown into a stone pillar by Torres Mendez, and he stands up, dusts himself off, and keeps shooting. Physiologically, Leon's bone density and muscle fiber recruitment are borderline superhuman. If a volatile attacks Leon, it's not pinning a helpless runner. It's wrestling a government agent who specializes in close quarters combat, CQC. Leon doesn't need a UV flashlight to survive a pounce. He has the strength to throw the creature off. But what about resources? Harran is dry. No ammo stores, no merchant. Leon's 9mm is gonna run dry in the first hour. This forces a shift to melee. In Dying Light, weapons degrade. A water pipe breaks after 20 hits. But Leon brings the Krauser knife fight mechanics to the table. He understands leverage and joint manipulation. He's executing precision stabs to the brainstem. The physics of a combat knife in the hands of a master are infinitely more efficient than a lead pipe in the hands of a novice. He doesn't need weapon durability. He needs one clean hit. Finally, Leon reaches the pit to face the Demolisher. This beast is a biological tank, throwing chunks of concrete with the velocity of a trebuchet. For Crane, this is a gladiator match of dodging and chipping away health. For Leon, this is just El Gigante all over again. The Demolisher's charge carries massive kinetic energy, but it has poor turning radius. Leon's strategy isn't to run circles, it's to bait the charge, sidestep, and unload precision damage into the armor gaps. He's fought things 3 times this size and won. So, how does he rank in the quarantine zone? We are assigning Leon a Tier A, a ground-level apex rating for the slums and Old Town. He loses points because his lack of parkour fluidity makes traversing the vertical city slow and dangerous. He compensates by being the most lethal thing on the ground. He doesn't need the high ground if he can clear the low ground. Leon survives the slums, secures the research, and looks toward the horizon. But the infection is spreading, and the city walls can't hold him anymore. He needs a vehicle. Section 2. The Countryside, the following. Leaving the suffocating verticality of Harran behind, Leon heads into the countryside. The environment shifts dramatically, from tight urban claustrophobia to wide-open killing fields. To survive here, the metric changes from parkour endurance to vehicular mastery. Leon acquires the buggy, a rough-and-tumble all-terrain vehicle. Now, does a government agent know how to drive? In Resident Evil 6, Leon piloted a street bike through a burning skyscraper and outran an avalanche. In Resident Evil 4, he navigated a jet ski through a collapsing cavern with zero visibility. Driving a reinforced buggy across a flat field is easiest commute he's ever had. Let's look at the physics of the road. But Leon understands vehicular combat. He isn't just driving, he's managing momentum. We estimate that even with the buggy's rudimentary suspension, Leon's ability to drift and vector impact force means he uses the car as a kinetic weapon, shattering infected bones without stalling the engine. The open road effectively removes his movement penalty. He doesn't need to climb when he can drive 80 miles per hour. But the countryside introduces a new biological threat, the mist. The blue, volatile chemical turns people instantly. Here is where we apply the Plagas factor. Leon's blood is not normal. Having survived the Las Plagas parasite, his body contains suppressed antibodies and a rewired nervous system. If the Harran Virus attempts to hijack his biology, it encounters a hostile environment, but he would resist the transformation. He isn't a fast turner. He's a biological anomaly. This resistance is tested against the freaks of nature. Giant, specialized mutations like the Hollerer and the Toad. A toad projects acid at a velocity we estimate around 40 meters per second. To a normal human, that's fast. To Leon Kennedy, it's moving in slow motion. We have to reference the infamous laser room feat. Leon dodged sensory-triggered lasers with a reaction time calculated in the milliseconds. Avoiding a glob of biological projectile vomit is trivial by comparison. Finally, he faces the mother. Her danger lies in psychic projection and hallucinogenic control. She tries to break the mind before the body, but Leon's already won this battle. He resisted Osmond Sadler, a cult leader who could telepathically control an entire island of Ganados. When the mother attempts to cloud his mind with visions, Leon's psychological durability, hardened by years of trauma and bioterror, holds firm. He rejects the illusion, not with magic, but with sheer military-grade discipline. So, how does he rank in this new biome? The open fields play entirely to his strengths. The lack of vertical obstacles removes his only weakness, while the vehicle amplifies his mobility. We're upgrading him to Tier S, Mobile Fortress. He doesn't just survive the countryside, he dominates it. But the story doesn't end here. Flash forward 15 years. The world has fallen, civilization is gone, and an older, grittier Leon walks toward the walls of Villedor. Section 3. Villedor, the city and the chemical zones. 15 years have passed. The world hasn't just ended. It has evolved into a new, brutal dark age. We're now looking at an older Leon S. Kennedy, the hardened veteran seen in Death Island. He steps into Villedor, a city defined by rooftop settlements and chemical wastelands. The narrative shifts here. We aren't testing a rookie's luck or a prime agent's athleticism anymore. We are testing a veteran's efficiency against the ravages of time. Biologically, age is a factor we must calculate. By the time Leon reaches Villedor, he's pushing 50. In physiological terms, his VO2 max, the maximum amount of oxygen his body can utilize during exercise, has likely decreased by about 10 to 15% compared to his Raccoon City days. However, what he loses in raw elasticity, he gains in neuromuscular efficiency. This is old man strength. His muscle memory is absolute. His first major obstacle in the central loop isn't the infected. It's the renegades. These are human enemies, masked and violent, fighting with a chaotic, drug-fueled aggression. To Leon, This is just a Tuesday. We have to analyze the parry mechanic from the Resident Evil 4 remake. Leon possesses the ability to deflect incoming melee attacks. Axes, machetes, even chainsaws with a combat knife. When a renegade swings a makeshift axe, the kinetic energy is sloppy and telegraphed. Leon's CQC training allows him to identify the vector of the attack, apply perpendicular force to the weapon's flat side, and destabilize the attacker's center of gravity. He isn't fighting them, he's dismantling them. But Villedor introduces specialized infected that challenge the senses: howlers and banshees. A howler scream is designed to stun, capable of rupturing eardrums and alerting the horde. But consider Leon's auditory history. While a howler might stun a civilian, Leon fights through the ringing. He treats the scream not as a debilitating status effect, but as a target indicator. The environment itself, however, presents a new problem. The central loop is massive, vertical, and filled with THV Gen Mod chemical zones that burn lungs instantly. Leon lacks the supernatural agility to use a grappling hook with Aiden's fluidity. He relies on the paraglider, is legendary. In Dying Light 2, UV light burns the infected. Leon would weaponize this, taping UV bars to his tactical vest or using them to create kill zones, much like he used incendiary grenades. The ultimate test of Villedor is Waltz. This antagonist is powered by inhibitors, moving with a blur of speed and strength that mimics a low-level Wesker. This is the closest equivalent Leon faces to his old nemesis. Waltz attacks with sweeping, telekinetic-like strikes. Leon cannot outrun Waltz. He cannot overpower him physically. But he has defeated Albert Wesker, a man who could dodge bullets. Leon's solution to speed is prediction. He relies on aimbot accuracy, tracking the center of mass and waiting for the split-second deceleration when Waltz strikes. He trades health for damage, taking a hit to land a fatal shot. So where does the veteran rank? We assign Leon a Tier A Urban Legend rating for Villedor. However, he drops a tier from the Countryside because the sheer verticality of the skyscrapers work against him. Without a grappling hook or superhuman parkour skills, navigating the skyline is slow and perilous. But the sun begins to set, and the radio crackles with a warning. A level 4 chase is starting, and this time, something darker is hunting him. Section 4. Apex Predators and Final Probabilities. The sun vanishes behind the skyline. The screams of the virals fade, replaced by a guttural, predatory growl that vibrates in the chest. A night hunter has entered the lobby. This is the apex predator of the Dying Light ecosystem, a sentient, mutated volatile that hunts other hunters. Leon is cornered in a chemical dark zone, low on ammo with no backup. Leon Kennedy, however, operates on a different physiological engine. In Resident Evil 4, he clears entire villages without stopping. In Resident Evil 6, he fights through a citywide war zone for hours without showing signs of aerobic fatigue. Physiologically, his lactic acid threshold appears practically non-existent. His body recycles ATP, the energy currency of cells, at a rate that defies normal biology. Leon treats physical exertion as a constant state of being. In a battle of attrition, the night hunter expects prey that tires. Leon simply doesn't. But let's push the simulation to its absolute breaking point. What if Leon decides to level the playing field? What if he injects a GRE inhibitor? This is the hypothetical beast scenario. Based on his medical history with the G virus and Las Plagas, we hypothesize that the inhibitors wouldn't kill him. They would unlock him. The Plagas antibodies would likely stabilize the volatile chemicals, creating a super survivor without the mental degradation of turning. He wouldn't just be stronger, he would become a stable biological weapon. capable of ripping a volatile apart with his bare hands. This leads to our final assessment, the boss rush. If Leon had to face the entire hierarchy of infected in a gauntlet, his efficiency turns the Horde's numbers against him. He doesn't need parkour to escape because he removes the reason to escape. If the threat is dead, you don't need to run. We assign Leon a Tier S, God Killer rating. He is the event horizon of Harran. So, what are the final odds? Running the numbers across all three zones, the Slums, the Countryside, and Villedor, Leon Kennedy holds a 94% survival probability. Compare this to Kyle Crane's estimated 85%. The difference comes down to survival philosophy. Crane survives by outmaneuvering the environment. Leon survives by neutralizing the environment. Leon is an exterminator. If you want to see the math on if Chris Redfield could punch a Demolisher to death, hit that subscribe button.